Hello and welcome to another edition of the wrap up, what we're calling the win of the season edition of the wrap up, where the Toronto Raptors just beat the Denver Nuggets 127 to 115 on the second night of a back to back after beating the Phoenix Suns last night in Phoenix, tonight in Denver, in altitude. A game not a lot of people picked them to win. And also, they were without Fred VanVleet. So just a really incredible showing. Having some echo here, not sure whose fault that is, but just so you guys know. But yeah, a couple things I did not have on the bingo card tonight. I'll tell you right now. One of them was Armani Brooks getting the start, as well as Precious Achiuwa, which is weird, especially after Nurse kind of answered a question pregame about why he liked Birch in the starting lineup and Precious and Boucher off the bench together. So that was confusing. Not saying it was a bad decision, but it was it was a decision. The other thing I did not have on my bingo card, Don is shaming you right now. The other thing I didn't have on my bingo card was random, but Chris Boucher bringing up Brittany Griner, who's in Russia, currently detained in Russia, in his post-game press conference. Shout out to him. Didn't really know he was political like that and was very surprised by those two things today. But I got Kyle Brickman today. And I think what's best is why don't we go through a bunch of players today? Because it felt like everyone showed up and really just they got a sustained effort from their bench, especially, who pulled them together in that fourth quarter. But who do you want to start with?
It would be disingenuous to start with anyone other than Pascal. I know it's weird. It's feels kind of buried because the end of the game didn't really feature him. They went on this huge run and there was a point in which I thought he wasn't going to check in for Banton. They were just going to close the game without Siakam on the floor. But he did carry them for stretches again, like Gary did last night, through poor shooting stretches. So this team is really settled into.
I think you're muted.
Enough to sub.
There you go. There you go. I can't.
How long was I muted for? Who knows?
You're muted for a little while there.
That hurts.
A little while. But what were you saying? Just say it again.
Yeah, essentially, it's incredible that Pascal can carry them for stretches like this, just like Gary did last night, and it's perfect. It's what the team needs. All they need is one guy to carry them for a little while, and the bench is good enough to basically withstand any sort of off shooting night from anyone. Gary, I didn't actually think that anyone else even performed poorly tonight other than Gary.
No, exactly. As I totally agree. We won't slander Gary too much because there's really no point. But yeah, on Pascal, it's a good point that even though the bench unit really carried them to the win, and we'll talk about that unit, it was Pascal who early in their game kept them in it, and he had 25 points by halftime. He had a really great first half and finished the game with 33, 5 and 7 and 2 steals. The other guy who kind of carried them, I think, was Scotty Barnes, who you see throw this.
That was a great pass.
It was.
That was an awesome pass.
I forget who tweeted this, but that was the exact same pass that you used to see Kyle Lowry throw to Pascal. So that was kind of fun to see. And you're seeing a lot of these Pascal highlights. You see a lot of Barnes two-man action that kind of starts off this stuff that leads to Pascal. But really, both of them, both Pascal and Scotty, scored in a lot of the same ways tonight, I think, which was in the post or in that floater range, and just kind of having really good touch tonight. Because Jokic, he's pretty underrated defensively, but what he does is he does take away the rim and he makes guys kind of shoot from that floater range over him. And he made them do that tonight, but they just kind of made him pay in a lot of cases. So Scotty also had 10 assists, which is a career high for him. And him and Pascal really carried the way. Any thoughts on Scotty before we move on?
I've got plenty. I mean, in general, the way he kind of has established himself as a closer on this team is really impressive. And I'm not sure if it's necessarily because he's has more like trust from his teammates now, or whether he's being more aggressive, but he late in games is a legitimate force on both ends of the floor. Like he had that offensive rebound kick out to Boucher. He scored in transition. He had a couple of tips. Like he's indispensable. I can't imagine a single lineup, closing lineup that I wouldn't want Scotty in. And I think you can only really say that about like 3 players in this team, and that's Scotty, Pascal, and Fred.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, but I think you're right. I don't know if it's a energy thing or a conditioning thing that recently he just has that energy in the fourth to close out games, because it wasn't always like this season. But you're definitely right that he kind of gets better as the game goes on, and he's been just making really, really clutch plays these last couple weeks at the end of the games. And I don't know really what we can contribute it to, other than maybe just one, conditioning, and then two, learning a little bit more the NBA game, the system, the opposing team. Now he's playing teams for the second time a lot of cases rather than the first time, so can learn some tendencies of players offensively and kind of make them pay. But let's move on, because there's really, like, I want to go rapid fire just because there's so many guys to get to today who
I
had
got somebody.
games that we should talk about.
I got somebody. I think third billing has to be Chris Boucher. Is
Yeah,
that where you were going?
we can go there.
To me, Chris had the third best game of anyone on the floor. Like he was, maybe not anyone on the floor. Jokic played well, yeah, but aside from Jokic, like he was one of the 5 best players on the floor tonight. He closed the game. That unit, he was part of the 2 units in the fourth that took over. The first one being like Banton, Barnes, Thad, Boucher, and Birch. A lot of B's in that lineup, by the way. That's a mouthful. And then the same lineup with Siakam in for Banton. I thought he was incredible. I'm 100% in on like him closing games. I don't know, like he had a stretch defensively and just on the glass, like a stretch of effort that I think kind of might not have been there all the time earlier, and that's why people are frustrated with him. But he's working his ass off, and it shows. And it's a bonus. It's just gravy when he knocks down shots. So I'm all in on Boucher.
Yeah, and so if you can see, I think we have to scroll a little bit, or is it right here? No, yeah, you can see Ken Birch, Delano Benton, Chris Boucher, Thad Young, and Scotty Barnes start the fourth quarter and just go on this incredible run together. Plus 18, plus 15. Like they on one hand, Jokic was on the bench when this run started, and DeMarcus Cousins wasn't really having things go his way. But on the other hand, I looked at the lineup and said, there's literally not a 3-point shooter here, sir. Can we get some? And it didn't even matter. Like,
No, it
it
didn't.
was just, the strategy was just like, someone creates some sort of opening so you can get a shot on the rim, and then 4 guys crash the offensive boards. So Chris Boucher had 9 offensive rebounds, which is insane. Almost the double-double just off offensive boards. But in total, the Raptors had 23 offensive rebounds to 9 for the Nuggets. More crazy than that, they had 23 offensive rebounds to 27 defensive rebounds. So they literally almost had as many offensive as defensive, which is like a good thing and also a bad thing. But yeah, that was really the story of the game. The Raptors out hustled them and killed them on the boards all night. And even in the clutch, when Scotty kind of got his own rebound, there was a whole lot of that. But you're right that Boucher had a really, really impressive game. He was kind of everywhere. He also had 4 blocks. Yeah, and he got the Kayla interview at the end. So he was kind of warranted. Let's talk about a couple other guys in that group since we're already on it. Thad Young, I thought, probably had his best stretch as a Raptor in the fourth quarter.
Absolutely.
3 steals, and they were all kind of dig downs right under the basket where it looked like a guy was going to go up and dunk, and then all of a sudden Thad's hands were in there and he was ripping the ball loose, and then he was taking it the other way. and making good plays in transition. He had the alley-oop to Ken Birch. He had this little nifty floater. He had the floater for the and one. It was a game where he didn't really bring anything in the first half, and you didn't really expect this. And then all of a sudden, he steps off in the fourth quarter with this really, really youthful group. And he kind of is the glue of this group. I think he's the connector. And on defense, he's kind of the low man. He gets them organized. So, yeah, it was a really, really good Thad Young game.
Yeah, I've been super critical of the Thad Young move, but tonight was really the first night where I can admit, like, oh, this is what they were going for. This is what they wanted. They wanted like a sense of responsibility with a bench group, which they had. It happened to be that this bench group was the closing group, which is again never a problem. This is reminiscent of like those sort of 2019 Raptors where like Nurse would just keep in the bench guys because like they're playing better. I'm sorry, Danny Green, you're sitting on the bench because Norm Powell's having a great night. Like this is sort of felt like had the same vibe as those classic teams, and just every single bench player played terrifically. And I think you have to credit a lot of that group's success to Thad Young. He's just moving the ball well. Not a terrific shooting night. Like he missed that three, and like the shots he did make were basically basically all layups. But I just thought he had everything going for him, playmaking wise, and he is really, really smart. He's in all the right places defensively, and he keeps the ball moving offensively, and that's really all you can ask for.
Yeah, I mean, when you say he organizes the bench unit, it's like organized chaos, right? Because their whole identity is to be chaotic and crash the boards and all that. But this was the best example of like what organized chaos looks like, I think, in that offensively they didn't have a ton of strategy other than crash the boards, but at least they were running in transition. They were making the Nuggets pay for DeMarcus Cousins complaining about fouls. They were organized on defense and getting steals. So all those things you can do even with the identity of a chaotic second unit. And other guy I want to talk about who I thought had a similar game to Thad was Kem Birch, because
Thank you.
very weird minutes distribution. He barely played in the first half, didn't start. That was confusing to me because he had such a good close to the game in Phoenix, but he also came in that fourth quarter and killed it defensively, hit a couple shots, you know, 6 offensive rebounds, which was probably the big thing for Kem Birch in 21 minutes. It was him and Boucher together were kind of leading that charge. So, yeah, what do you think about Birch?
Yeah, Birch has always been one of those guys where, like, even if he's not a dynamic rebounder, his teams rebound better when he's on the floor, which indicates like he's boxing out well or he's bringing a lot of rim pressure. But I mean, he's not bringing a lot of rim pressure. It would indicate that of a player. I think Kem Birch, it indicates that he boxes out really well. And all those offensive rebounds, a lot of those are Kem Birch just like diving to the hoop, occupying the best rebounder in the other team, and letting Scotty get to the glass or letting someone else get to the glass. And much has been made of this Achiuwa v. Birch stuff, a lot of it by us on this podcast. But hey, Birch was plus 19 tonight. Achiuwa was -2. I get that plus minuses and everything, but a 21-point difference is not insignificant. That can't just be explained by like, oh, he's playing against the bench versus playing against the starters. Like Kem Birch brings something to this team. The team kind of, especially nights like tonight, plays better with Kem Birch on the floor. So maybe it's something I'm willing to admit that when I'm advocating for Precious over Birch, it's probably just over my head. I think that Nurse has it right. Like clearly he knows what he's doing. Kem Birch is a net positive, especially I'm happy that he gave him a chance tonight because it worked out perfectly. So all credit to Nurse and credit to Birch. He had a great game.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, Nick finally answered the question that has kind of been asked to him before, which was like, why is Birch starting? And he answered that pregame if anyone wants to go back and listen. And he did give a good answer in terms of Birch does a lot of things that don't show up on the stat sheet. He's really good. I think he likes in the pick and roll, for example, when they guarded Booker last night, when they trap or double in the pick and roll. Birch is smart, so he can make split-second decisions after that double. Do I go to the rim? Do I go to the corner? Like, where does the next action go? I think he makes those decisions much quicker than Precious does. But I thought what was interesting today is like we've had this conversation so much recently. You're right that Birch was better than Precious tonight, pretty clearly. Precious went 4 for 6 from 3, though. Shout out to him.
No, I did want to
But
mention that. I
yeah,
didn't think like he was 5 for 10 from the field, 4 for 6 from 3, which means that he was 1 for 5 in every other shot. And there was a lot of like trying to attack Jokic in space and like travel turnover or like weird sort of hop dribble type like turnover or gets into trouble. But it doesn't actually matter when he's shooting the ball like this. He's become a shooter like a knockdown shooter, and it's ridiculous. I get a lot of these are open, but he's making contested shots from
yeah.
three. So I actually this is maybe the opposite of what I expected him from the beginning of the year. I kind of expected like, oh, he'd get better in isolation, he'd become a better decision maker, but the shooting will never be there, and that's something he'll have to deal with. It actually went the other way. It was like, oh, he's kind of an excellent shooter now. And he still has terrible decision making problems, and he still makes all these weird rookie mistakes or young guy mistakes. So I guess again that shows how much I know, and also on top of that, like I don't know, it gives me hope. All he needs to do is clean up a couple things, and he could be a real potent threat for this team.
It's really interesting, the shooting. Like, I'm not all the way there in saying, like, he's reliable yet because sample sizes with three-point shots kinda have to be bigger before it levels off, but people have been saying, like, Blake Sweet is kind of makes the point that I was gonna make. People have been saying, like, "Wow, since the All-Star break, Precious is shooting it well." Like, he's shooting over 40% going back to January 1st of this year and 38% on the season. I didn't even realize that until this tweet, but it goes back, like, how well he's been shooting the ball. So, definitely a very useful skill, even when, like, on a night like tonight, he's not, like, at his peak defensively or within the paint. But back to the Boucher or the Chem Precious thing is just like, Precious getting the start today was very encouraging to me because it shows that seems like they're just gonna go matchup based going forward here. And I think it's right to think that Precious is a better matchup on Jokic than Kem is, just because he's a little stronger than Kem and he can fight for post position a little bit more. There's going to be matchups where Kem is better. I think against quicker, you know, teams that play in the pick and roll a lot, like a Phoenix, that spread you out, make you make multiple decisions, multiple actions. So that's all I really want to see is like, rather, my complaint was really like, why is Kem guaranteed these starter minutes? And so it seems now that the coaching staff is going to be more matchup based, which is kind of what I like. And anyways, this is kind of a stupid argument because OG is supposed to come back this week. Fred is back, so they're obviously going to go back to that normal starting five, and then we can stop having this argument.
Yeah, and I look forward to it. I look forward to when the bench isn't an issue, and I think honestly, like we're getting close to the point where I have a lot of faith in this bench. And just one last thing on Achiuwa, it's still worth noting he has the fifth worst true shooting percentage in the entire NBA. So I get that he's hitting threes. The analytics still absolutely hate him. And Andrew, I agree, but he had a good night tonight. Kem had a terrific night tonight, and he was like plus 14 in the fourth quarter, like whatever, plus 18, and in the stretch he played. Like, I mean, what do you want me to say? I don't know what to say. He was good tonight.
Yeah, I also don't know if this person Steve Lamb. Nope, sorry. Let me find the tweet. If Steve Lamb wants to explain this comment, but I'm looking forward to hearing the breakdown on this one because I disagree. Okay, I thought Banton was kind of fine today, better than kind of past showings. He had 5 assists, but nothing really crazy stood out. Uh, any thoughts on him, or can we move?
I would give him more credit than fine. Again, I think that like once you're part of that group that goes on a run like that against good competition, like this is a great team. I'm gonna upgrade him from fine. And he also had
To
that
good. To what? What's your verb?
and he did have that one really like late in the shot clock bucket over. I guess it must have been Cousins, like really tough take. So that alone brings him up from fine to good.
Okay, he was good tonight. Fine. Armani Brooks, I thought was good tonight, even though he only went
I
one
agree.
for 4. Definitely surprised me. I kind of thought he was more of this 3-point shooting specialist because that's mostly what we heard. And he's also a shooting guard in a point guard's body. Like he's really skinny, really small, but he has really good hands defensively. I think that's what stood out to me more than anything. 2 steals, a whole lot of deflections tonight, and just like moved off the ball really well, really smartly, knew where to be, relocating. Yeah, and defensively really impressed me. So
Yeah.
Armani Brooks, like I thought it wasn't a bad decision to start him just from a like perspective of he's on a 10-day and they haven't seen a whole lot. So you got to make a decision soon on him, and you might as well get some more reps. I did not expect him to play 22 minutes tonight, but that's just a credit to him.
Yeah, I think he's also the type of guy you can start because it's like he's not going to harm you offensively by taking bad shots, and
Hmm.
he's a good shooter, so he spaces the floor. I was really impressed with him. He has a 6'9" wingspan, so even though he's only 6'3", he's still long. He still gets his hands like all in the lane, and I kind of see like he's a better playmaker than I expected. I kind of get like a Norman Powell vibe from him. Do you see that? Like maybe I don't know. He didn't really get the chance to show off his athleticism, but I thought he kind of moved like Norm and has a similar body.
Hmm.
Um, so I think they should sign him for the rest of the season. He's a relatively proven shooter, and they need guard help. Who knows how long Fred's going to be dealing with this injury? So I'm all in. I think they got to lock that dude up like as soon as possible.
Yeah, I also think like you'll remember in the championship season, Jody Meeks minutes where they just needed to drop a 3 and get someone in. Like they don't
Yeah,
have that anyone right now on their bench who they can drop those threes for. I think if he were to get signed for the rest of the season, like realistically in the playoffs, that could be his role. So yeah, I don't think that's yeah, I agree with you. Like from the names I've heard right now, I think
yeah. Not a
just
lot of winners out there. Like I'm happy with Armani Brooks compared to the rest of the field.
for sure, especially in terms of just it's a really good fit for what they need, and when one of their guards goes down, they obviously need depth at that position. They need depth at the shooting, just anyone who can shoot. And for him to step into starting lineup in Denver like that and play that well, that just shows that like he has some composure, he's ready for the moment, and yeah, really good game from him.
Do you buy in? Can I ask you, do you buy into this like it's hard to play at altitude thing? Because all these guys like already go to train at altitude anyway. They're in such good like like playing in Denver was tough in the early 90s because it's like guys were like chain smoking at halftime for the previous
Right.
decade of basketball. But like I don't know if it's that hard to play in Denver anymore. I don't believe like I don't think that it everyone's like, oh, we're up at altitude. Like I don't know. I don't believe in it. I don't believe in it.
I kind of believe in it, like just in the sense that your legs probably get a little more heavy than normally. But yeah, you're right. Compared to like the chain smoking halftime days, it's probably a lot less significant than it was back then. And like, well, like we talked about last episode, the Raptors are one of the most well conditioned teams in the league. I didn't think it affected them that much. I see on the timeline every single freaking Raptors game, people being like, at some point, people being like, looks like the legs are getting heavy. Looks like the Raptors are just too tired for this one. It's like, you can't say this every game. Like, there's just other teams are going to go on runs. It can't always be the excuse that the Raptors are getting tired. Um,
No, no. Let me just say this. I'm not saying it doesn't affect you at all. I'm saying there isn't as big of like a home court advantage as people claim. So
no,
like
you believe the earth is flat, is
no,
what you're
I don't believe that like the like Nuggets like live there half the year and it's like oh they're way more accustomed to this. It's a huge advantage. Like I don't know. I think it affects everyone equally. I don't buy it.
Yeah, well,
Modern medicine is too good.
Lee is feeling you. So that's all that matters, man. Okay. Last thoughts on the game? Anything we didn't hit on the game?
No, I'm happy.
Okay. Well, I'm going to give you the esteemed honor of picking Oh, okay. Of picking the Can-Am Taxman of the night. You know, the TSN broadcast gave it to a combination of Siakam, Barnes, and Boucher, which was a real cop-out answer, TSN. Who is your... Is it one of those three? Are you going off the board here? Who are you picking?
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go on the board. I'm gonna go Chris Boucher. I'm 100% in on Chris Boucher. I thought he had a great night. And again, this is sort of like Taxman to me means who performed way over expectation. I think Chris Boucher performed way better than anyone really ever like expected tonight, and he deserves it. He deserves his praise. He gets more criticism than anyone in the history of this cast. So I'm gonna give Chris Boucher the Taxman.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, the loser of the night went to me. 1 point short on the 2,500 plus parlay. So loser of the night goes to Oren because Jokic didn't score 27. He scored 26. But Taxman of the night goes to Chris Boucher, who scored 21 points on 8 of 15 shooting, along with 9 offensive rebounds, 13 total rebounds, and 4 blocks. Yeah, Chris Boucher, man. Great stuff. And for all you listeners, go to canamtax.com. Tax season it's started. It's here. I think you got to get it done by April in Canada. And yeah, Can-Am Tax will help you get it done, and they'll actually get you the money back that you deserve. So don't try to do one of those cheapo free TurboTax options. Go to canamtax.com and get back the money that you so desperately deserve. All right. Other than that, we wanted to keep it to a short episode tonight. It is the second half of a back-to-back, and it's midnight in Toronto where we are. So almost ready to get out of here, but maybe we'll pull up the schedule and then just kind of go off of that, say some final thoughts. Maybe we can get to a question or a comment. Let's just see. Not really any questions. Okay. So the Raptors have a whopping 2 days off. Wait, 3 days off. I haven't even heard of this for the Raptors. 3 days off. I'm going to go sun tanning. Okay. 3 days off before they are in LA to play the Clippers. Then it says versus the Lakers, but that's at the Lakers. That's just, I think, wrong on Google's part because I know they're on a long road trip right now. Oh, there we go. Oh, yeah, it's not. Okay. This guy long conned me. Okay. The Raptors play on Monday, so they just have 1 day off. They play the Lakers on Monday, then Clippers on Wednesday, and then back to Los Angeles. We got the 2 wins. We got the 2 that we needed in this 4-game kind of thing. So, yeah, how confident are you feeling about the Raptors?
I just know LeBron is going to see the Raptors jersey, and he just has another gear in him against Toronto. But I'm very confident. I think again, I always vacillate between like incredibly down on this team and incredibly high on this team, but I'm back in. I don't care. These are 2 huge wins on a road trip back to back at altitude. Since we're allowed to say that, at altitude tonight in Denver. So I'm 100% in. I can see them winning the next 3 pretty easily. And
20.
Philly has sort of mentioned that they're going to be like strategically resting Embiid and Harden, specifically because they want to avoid the Nets in the play-in, just the way the seeding works out. So, or the Nets in the, I guess what would be the first round, the way the seeding would work out. So, who knows if they sit against Toronto, that's a win. Chicago will be a close game. It's the second night of a back-to-back on the road. Who knows? And then they get into Cleveland, where it's like probably the biggest game of the season. That Cleveland game is going to determine seeding. So
for sure,
big stretch here.
For sure. Worth noting that the Cleveland has the tiebreaker already over Toronto. So even if Toronto ties Cleveland, they would have to actually have a better record than Cleveland by the end of the season. But yeah, I agree with you. A couple of things to note here. Who guards LeBron James? worth noting that OG is supposed to be back on Tuesday. We'll see if he is. That was the 2-week window, and then he becomes the obvious option. But yeah, either Pascal or Barnes, they'll take turns, I'm sure. I like this question if we can get to it. Who guards?
The
Sorry.
the biggest advantage the Raptors have is like the vaccine mandates in Canada dictate
Absolutely.
that Kyrie Irving can't play. I'd say maybe the second biggest advantage is that I I think the best lineups for the Nets are going to be super guard heavy, like Kyrie and Curry on the floor at the same time, just because they'll need the shooting. And the
Mhm.
Raptors will be able to attack that. The Raptors are their best lineups are pretty long, can all have a decent have a decent post up game. So I think you're going to see a lot of like Scotty Barnes posting up Seth Curry or like Thad Young post up on like Joe Harris type. I think that you're going to see a whole lot of that, and I would assume that's the biggest advantage.
Yeah, I agree with you. Even if Kyrie plays and there's a vaccine mandate, they're just kind of a small team. I mean, it's interesting because if Simmons is back, then they can kind of shapeshift into a bigger team. But the way that they've been playing recently and the way they've looked best is with a few guards on the floor. And so, like you said, the post ups, like Scotty is going to have mismatches, OG is going to have mismatches. And then, just like Steve said, the offensive rebounding is another huge thing, huge advantage. Obviously, they have Drummond, but after Drummond, their backup center is like sometimes Claxton, but he's not really reliable. More likely Aldridge, who's not like a big rebounder. So I think, yeah, you're right. Those two things. And defensively, if Kyrie's not there, I actually think the Raptors are really well positioned to kind of send the extra help to KD. And then, okay, KD is now passing it to like Seth Curry. You're okay with that. You're not like freaking out about it because if Kyrie's not there to become the second side guy and then, tear apart a shifted defense, it's like Seth Curry and Patty Mills are doing that, and you're just not that afraid of that. You're not going to be that afraid to like box in one KD or double KD off. Like I want if Kyrie's not playing in that game, I want them double teaming KD off the rip, like off the tip off. So I think those are kind of the two advantages, just like the sense that the Raptors already are an aggressive team who does this to stars. So it won't be like a big mentality shift for them to do that in the Nets game.
Yeah, I agree completely. They did the strategy is like basically make Andre Drummond like the focal point of their offense. Like, oh, we're double teaming Kevin Durant. Andre Drummond demand a million post ups, and like that can just be your whole offense. I don't care, and that's gonna be frustrating for the Nets, and it'll be great for the Raptors. So I guess Lakers on Monday and also on Friday, I believe. Before we go, do you want OG thrown right at LeBron on his first day back? A guy who's like dropped 50 twice in a week type thing. You want because I don't want OG on LeBron.
I mean, it doesn't really matter. Like they switch every screen, so these like talking points are always like overplayed. But like OG's not gonna play like 40 minutes his first night like back. And I think you don't play someone unless they're ready to take on like every matchup because like we said, like they switch. So yeah, I don't really mind it. Like if OG's ready to play, then he's ready to play. If he's not, then they shouldn't play him and they should wait it out. That's kind of where I'm at with that. But yeah, the Cavs lost today, by the way. So the Raps are only one game back of them after today. Good stuff. We got to get out of here. It's past midnight. I got to go to sleep. But yeah, Raptors beating the Nuggets. Maybe the best win of the season. Really impressive bench run in the fourth to carry out the win. And this has been the wrap up. I'm Oren, that's Kyle, and we got Don Yang producing the show behind the scenes. Thank you for tuning in. Like the video on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, and we'll be back on Monday night after the Raptors take on the Lakers. See you then.